the study that I'm the lead author on was my dissertation project, and I'm super proud of it because it was not easy. And I came up with the idea kind of by myself. It wasn't like normally you have some influence from your advisor or where there's funding. This was totally me thinking about what I was interested in, what I wanted to study. And so I saw it through to the finish. It was kind of a nightmare at times. But I studied appetite hormones in elite female runners during different intensities of exercise. And so it was cool for a few reasons. One, no one studies females because it's a little bit more complex. Because you have to account for the menstrual cycle. And so a lot in research, a lot of studies focus on males. And so that was kind of a unique aspect to my study. And then two, using elite athletes is super hard because they're really particular about their training and their nutrition. And, it's hard to ask them to put some of that aside to participate in research. So it was a little tricky, but it was a really cool study. And the findings can be applied to what I do as a runner myself and as someone who gives other people advice in nutrition and coaching.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre, skincare for athletes. Whether you're in the gym, on the mats, on the road, or in the pool, we protect your skin so you're more comfortable in your own body. To learn more, go to solpre.com.
Today on the Smart Athlete Podcast, my guest has numerous podium and top finishes at various ultras. She currently holds the course records at the Bandera 100K and Lake Sonoma 50 miler, as well as being the champion at the Western States 100 in 2014. She holds her PhD in nutrition and exercise science. Welcome to the show, Dr. Stephanie Howe Violett.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We have a little bit of delay, so if anybody's watching and there's like little pauses, we're trying to make this happen from across the world. So I feel like the miracle of science. You're in the middle of Europe right now. I'm in the middle of the United States. So even if there's a couple second delay, like we're doing okay. It's not as bad as even when people are doing weather reports and there's that huge delay with your news station and like the weathercaster out 5 miles from them.
Yeah. We'll just pretend it's that.
So what are you doing in Europe this summer? Are you training, you're racing, you're coaching, you're just on vacation? What are you doing over there?
I'm definitely here. I was planning to be racing UTMB at the end of August, but I had surgery. I had surgery on my Achilles in April, and so I'm not going to be ready to run 100 miles by the end of August. So I'm just here. Hoping to do a shorter race, but also just training and working. So it works out all right. I love it over here.
Was that like an acute injury that led to that, or?
Sort of. No, actually not acute. It's been chronic. Achilles are my area of my special area that gets injured easily on me.
Okay.
And it was kind of a Achilles surgery is misleading. It was more in my heel. So it's kind of a long time coming. Great surgery, but need some downtime after that.
What does recovery look for something like that? Are you like completely non-weight bearing for a while?
Well, if I got the surgery in the US, I would have been, but I came over to Sweden because the best surgeon is there. And so I was walking 50% weight the next day, but that's not normal. And it was more of a minor surgery. So the recovery was pretty quick, honestly. And I was able to run within 6 weeks, but turns out that you probably shouldn't start ramping up for races because now my other one is a little bit angry, but it was just a good reminder of, back off. So now I'm not training for anything. I'm just running bits and biking a bit right now.
Yeah. I think it's hard. It's like your head's so used to, I can go out for 20 miles, 30 miles or whatever. And then you had the surgery and it's like, No, by 5 may even be pushing it, or whatever the limits were for
Yeah.
you. I think it's a hard mental shift sometimes.
It is, and I just miss the freedom of being able to go out and run. That's how I clear my head. And so when I
Yeah.
could finally run, I was like, I'm gonna do this. This is a bad idea. I'm gonna do this. But my body gave me a not so subtle reminder that you got to be a little more patient. So I'm being patient.
Yeah, I think is especially. I mean, with me, it was the same way. I crashed at a triathlon last year and shattered my collarbone, had to have surgery, and was off for several months from that. And it was definitely like almost like a life shift. I don't know that I'm quite the same um,
Hmm.
past that, just because like life had to change for a considerable amount of time. Um,
Yeah,
so uh,
yeah.
did
It's
you, go
it's
ahead.
never easy.
Yeah, yeah. So you're gonna race UTMB. Can you tell me about that? I'm not huge into ultras, so I don't know all about each particular race. So what I mean, what's the draw of that race for you?
So UTMB Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc is 177-kilometer race around Mont Blanc, and it's pretty cool because it goes through France, Switzerland, and Italy. And it's kind of one of the, like, if Western States is the iconic race of the U.S.,
Hmm.
UTMB is the iconic race of Europe or France, and it's much more technical. Well, it's not that technical. It's technical for U.S. standards, but much more mountainous, a lot of vertical, and
Right.
it very rarely do you get a race that's a big, huge loop. And so it's a pretty awesome race. The scene
Hmm.
over here is amazing, and it's just like something you want to do as an ultra runner, I think.
Well, I mean, once you get to that distance, how many people are at the start line?
Oof, this one like 3,000.
Oh, okay.
It's huge. Yeah, I mean, and most of them are Euro runners. This is like,
Yeah.
one of the things they do. They're, more active in the mountains. It's not like a running race like Western States. It's more like a lot of hiking with poles and then like, trying to stay on your feet downhill. So
Okay.
it's actually a huge race.
Okay. Um, you're not anywhere where you get stuck inside for the winter for training, are you? Normally.
Me,
Yeah.
I live in Bend, Oregon. So
Okay.
yeah, we have a lot of snow in the winter.
Okay.
Um, but I ski, so I do that in the winter time.
Okay. Well, I was talking to another gentleman he's a head coach of Team USA Minnesota, and he does marathons and ultras. And so since he's in Minnesota, not always the best weather in the wintertime, and he was saying that like he was getting ready for, I can't remember if it was Western States 100 or what it was, but it was a varying terrain course, a lot up and down, and he was talking about he would take his treadmill and pitch the back of the treadmill up so that he could
Oh
practice running
yeah,
downhill with a treadmill.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I was wondering if you did any weird treadmill antics, or
Um,
if you had like interesting
no, you
training
know what?
techniques.
I've only run in a treadmill maybe 10 times in my life. I
Okay,
don't really do
good for
that. I
you.
like to be outside.
Yeah.
I'd rather just like do something different than run on a treadmill. But that's partly why I come over to Europe is to prepare. I don't think there's anywhere in the US you can enjoyably prepare for a race like this. Maybe the San Juan Mountains in Colorado, but
Yeah.
they're just under so much more snow. So yeah, I come over here to make my training a little bit more fun. I just much more prefer to be in the mountains anyway, and the
Yeah.
U.S. is lacking on that sense. So yeah, I don't do the treadmill thing, but I know a lot of people who do successfully. And you
Hmm.
do have to manipulate your training environment to come over here and do well.
Yeah. So I mean, I know for a lot of people it's going to be almost like a mysterious or I'm reticent to say magical, but um, kind of an ideal situation where you have the freedom to go, yeah, I'm going to Europe for the summer. So, like, how does that work for you professionally? You entirely remote, I assume? Did you catch that, or was it too delayed?
I think I missed part of that, but I think you're asking how does it work for me to come over to Europe for the summer and
Yep.
make life work. So I work for myself. I have a sports nutrition business, and I do a little bit of coaching, mostly sports nutrition. And so when I come over here, I just work on. It actually works out well for me because I can do emails first thing in the morning, then I go train. And then I work from like 4 to 10 or 11 p.m. To overlap with the US. So it works out pretty well. And while I'm over here, I usually try to pick up a little bit of work doing nutrition at just like different like organizations, just something outside of the US. So it's pretty fun for me to be over here. But yeah, it's definitely like it sounds like, oh, Stephanie's off in Europe, just like playing around. But no, I actually work while I'm here. My husband at one point was like, you need to put some photos of you working on Instagram because all my photos are like me running in the Alps. And like, no,
Yeah,
I
it's like, here's this
actually do
magical
work while I'm here.
unicorn off in
So,
the mountains.
yeah. And I mean, I like working. I'm not like, I love free time too, but I love what I do. And so it's not really something that I look forward to it. Like I love the clients I work with. I love talking about nutrition. So it's not like something that's holding me back. I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, was the whole situation by design, or did you just kind of like stumble into it? I know I designed kind of my life to be more flexible for competing post-collegiately, but I don't know if
Yeah.
everybody does that or if it's just kind of like a happy circumstance.
I think I'm willing to take chances and seek lifestyle.
Mhm.
This is not what I saw myself doing. I went through PhD, like undergrad, master's, PhD, straight through. So that was like 10 years of post grad
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
And then I worked as a professor for a while, and it wasn't the best fit for me. I thought that's what I wanted to do, but I don't love lecturing. And so I
Yeah.
started thinking about what else I could do, how I could use this degree, because I want to use my PhD. Jeez, I spent so long
You
going to
spent so much
school.
time and
Oh
money and
my gosh.
energy.
Yeah. And then the running thing opportunity kind of picked up. So I had an opportunity with the North Face to, be a, I guess, professional athlete. And so I kind of just like designed this niche for myself that's worked out really well. And I like to think of it as like I put in my time of like being a PhD student and like going through
Yeah.
that. And now I'm kind of living the good life. But it's due to a lot of hard work and being creative and willing to take a risk of starting my own business. And,
Yeah.
I left a job where I had full-time benefits and, like it was just like really secure to like try this. And it's been really great.
Yeah. Did you have any like fallback plan if things didn't work out?
Not necessarily. I've never been someone who, has struggled to work or like find a way to make things work. Like if I didn't have a job, I would work at a coffee shop until I found a job. And I guess my fallback plan right now is I'll teach at a university,
Hmm.
which is a pretty good fallback plan. uh, and I may want to go back to academia at some point.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I saw you had, um, I'll say, have published or been published in conjunction with a few different studies that all seem to focus around
Mhm.
like exercise intensity and appetite. Can you kind of walk me through what you were doing, like what the difference between those studies were?
So I think I missed part of that, but my
Okay.
main study, were you asking about the different papers I've published?
Yes.
And
Yep.
yeah, well, most of those papers I was not the lead author. I was participating in research, helping out. The study that I'm the lead author on was my dissertation project, and I'm super proud of it because it was not easy, and
Hmm.
I came up with the idea kind of by myself. It wasn't like normally you have some influence from your advisor or where there's funding. This was totally me thinking about what I was interested in, what I wanted to study. And so I saw it through to the finish. It was kind of a nightmare at times. But I studied appetite hormones in elite female runners.
Okay.
during different intensities of exercise. And so it was cool for a few reasons. One, no one studies females because it's a little bit more complex. Because you have to account for the menstrual cycle. And so in research, a lot of studies focus on males. And so that was kind of a unique aspect to my study. And then two, using elite athletes is super hard because they're really particular about their training and their nutrition. And, it's hard to ask them to put some of that aside to participate in research. So it was a little tricky, but it was a really cool study. And the findings can be applied to what I do as a runner myself and as someone who gives other people advice in nutrition and coaching.
So I'm assuming, what did you find? Like, I assume
the
way you were talking about it, seems like your results were statistically significant. So like, what did you find out?
They were. Although it wasn't, there was, okay, so the significant part was we know that appetite is suppressed post exercise. And that's important because there's a window of time that you need to refuel to adequately restock your glycogen stores. And it's about 40 to 60 minutes. And so in this study, we measured 2 different intensities to kind of mimic like an easy training day and a hard training day, and then measured the appetite hormones at every 20 minutes for 60 minutes post-exercise. And we found what we were expecting, that those appetite hormones are altered in the direction of suppression until about 60 minutes post-exercise, and subjective appetite is doing the same. So people don't want to eat until about 60 minutes, but that's too late. So that was like the significant part of it. We thought we would see more suppression with higher intensity exercise than moderate. And we're talking like 80% VO2 max versus 60% VO2 max. But that actually wasn't significant. However, it was trending higher after hard intensity workouts, which makes sense because you do a hard workout, you're less likely to eat. Your stomach doesn't feel like you want to eat. So I think if we were able to do a like 85%, 90% VO2 max, which the IRB would not let me do. That's a committee that approves all research you do on human subjects.
Too high?
And you have to get everything through them. And so I wanted to do a little bit higher intensity, but they wouldn't let me. So I think if a future study, if they looked at that, they would find that difference as well. So we didn't in my study, but still really, really cool to actually see that research in women. And elite women are similar to elite men, whereas when you have sedentary or overweight, obese women and men, they have different responses. So the women are more robust to their hormones are more robust to have them. Their appetite is not as suppressed, so they want to eat post exercise. Whereas elite women are like elite men. So that's a finding that was really significant to the current literature at the time.
Okay. Let's see if I can remember both these questions. So why did the IRB say no to higher intensity? Do you know?
Oh gosh. Well, my IRB was not used to doing research in exercise performance studies. I was at Oregon State and they were doing more nutrition and not really exercise science. And so to them, it was like, this was like pushing a lot of limits, like doing all these blood draws, doing VO2 max. So they just thought that was too high. That's not normal to have an IRB. Not like you do that, but they can be a little bit sticky with things. So that was unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're trying not to like push things into unethical bounds, but it seems like, especially if you're working with elite athletes, like they have normal work at 85, 90% VO2 max. It's not like saying we're going to hit you at 105% VO2 max for as long as you can go, like.
Right. This was like, we fought this for a year to get it approved. And once they said yes to pretty much the study I wanted to do, then we were like, okay, let's go with it. So, I mean, I'd love to work with, an IRB committee that's really used to these kind of studies. In Europe, they have a lot of them. Like go to Frankfurt or Copenhagen, they're like, do whatever. Just kidding. But yeah, I mean, you got to find the balance too.
Yeah.
So
how do you, one of the things I'm curious about with the studies is like, did you control for humidity and temperature, like ambient temperature?
During the
During the testing.
Yeah, so it was in an exercise physiology lab. So
Okay.
yeah, we controlled for temperature, and we controlled for diet for 48 hours before diet and physical activity. So that was another tough thing with elite runners, was saying, please take the day off before. And we didn't want to modify their fueling. So we asked them to just mimic what they did from their first session to their second session, rather than tell them they can eat this and they can eat that, because I wanted it to be more of an applied study. So you have to find that balance too between controlling too much so you can see significance and really have your variables stand out, and finding the application piece, because no one's going to just follow a diet that you give them. So when athletes are more in their habitual lifestyle, they're probably their performance is going to be more real to them. So we controlled as much as we could without really going overboard with changing the athletes' training and nutrition.
Yeah. I think what I think about is, so I raced last weekend and it was pretty hot. So like I overheated. It was a triathlon. I overheated by the run and I just couldn't run very hard. And then by the end, I kind of got to the point where I definitely didn't want to eat, and like Gatorade I could take a little bit in, but it's like, I don't want to say I wanted to pass out, but I definitely wanted to take a nap or something. So the IRB would definitely say no to this, but I'd be curious to see if you could like crank the humidity up, crank the heat up, and then see what differences you could find between like fueling during, or like see how the appetite changes, in that environment, saying like no fuel for your run versus like that's a control group versus like giving them whatever it is, whatever sports drink or fuel you want, and then seeing how that changes like post run appetite. That might be interesting.
There's actually some really good studies out of the University of Oregon. That's actually where I started my PhD, and then I transferred to Oregon State.
Okay.
But they did a lot on heat and humidity in their environmental chamber, on mostly cycling, because that's a little bit easier to measure some of these things. So they have some really good stuff that probably came out in 2000. Maybe 2012, 2014. Chris Minson is he's not the lead, but he was the advisor on these dissertation projects. So yeah, it's actually interesting when you start adding variables like heat and humidity, what that does to appetite hormones. Like when I did my study, I tried to keep it narrow, but the more you like read into it, the more questions you have. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do this? And wouldn't it be cool to do this? Like, if I could just be paid to be a professional student and just do research, like whatever I wanted, that would be my dream job. So I'm like taking offers. If anyone wants to just fund me to, research all these cool things in sport nutrition and exercise physiology, I'm open to it.
We'll see what we can do.